Hello, I'm Robert Wood with Mountainwood Homes, and we're here to talk about. I'm here with Steve Klingerman and John May, and we're members of the Professional Remodelers Association, and we're talking about this week because of the tour of remodeled homes. It's a virtual event, and so today we're going to talk about design build and some of the facets that go into that. And we'll just have a discussion back and forth with each other and address each part of it. One of the things that as we've worked through our businesses, one of the models that comes to us occasionally is we have clients who want to bring an architect on and use their services to create their design. And we think that's a great way to go. And we want their expertise that the architect brings to that. Probably the biggest thing that we want to educate our clientele and any clients that are thinking about doing a remodel or any kind of construction is the need to not only have this architect on board, but also have a builder as a member of that team. And also, if the architect isn't going to do the interior design piece of it, you need to have an interior design as part of that team, because it is that team approach that can get the design build solved, and you have all the players in the room at one time to make those decisions. Occasionally, we do get plans from clients who have an architect draw them a fantastic remodel or even a new home, and then they go out and get 3 or 5 bids, and I would say 99% of the time there's a disconnect on what the actual pricing they expected to be. And that is the biggest thing, because it is the builder ultimately that is involved in that pricing and controls that pricing and can make recommendations during the design. And we've had things that are 1.5 to 3.5 times more than what the client expected during their design with their architect. And that's not to say anything bad about architects. It's just the builders, again, are the ones connected to the pricing. And so that's why we see it is extremely valuable to have that whole team together, and then they can get that fantastic result that they're going after. You're going to invest money in this front end design, and so your money is best invested in having all the teammate players there. Steve, you had something to talk about as far as in-house design and how that comes together.
Yeah, and we've had some architects come in and a similar experience where clients don't know necessarily when or where to start. And so I believe that communication is the key to good remodeling, and that communication between architect, client, general contractor, and interior designer each has a role, a fairly strong role, and the architect can certainly bring his years of experience on especially external roof lines and how the exterior of a building looks together. The majority of them I've worked with don't do too much with picking of colors or tile or the fixtures that's going into a house. So they're more interested in the structural side of things. So when you do in-house, you're bringing your set of plans or ideas to a contractor that has a design build team. So it's a contractor like myself that does a lot of the pricing, but he relies on his team of both drafts people and putting the plans together in a usable fashion, and then as well bringing in the interiors of not only selecting the pieces and parts, but also sourcing them, because oftentimes, at least for us, we'll get somebody that sends us a picture from Pinterest and we spend hours trying to find that piece just to find out that it's either not really made or not available or terribly expensive that, we can't get it, or a very, very long lead time. Recently, we're finding stuff that we really can't fit within the schedule because we can't source it effectively. But the design build team, which all three of us are kind of design build, have a team together, is, in my opinion, a great way to start a project, whether it be an addition, a kitchen, a bathroom, a whole house remodel, because there's a group of people that each with a different specialty being able to put together in a team fashion their ideas and put it forward, and then have those ideas put down on paper, whether it be a set of plans, a schedule of finishes, a timeline, so that there's some cohesiveness between all of the discussions. And there are many, 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 many details within a whole house or any large remodel. And if you do not keep track of those things, the details can slip away. And that's where the problems lie in my book of whole house or any major remodel. The details, as the old saying goes, the devil's in the details, and you've got to record them and have buy-in from the client to make sure. In fact, in our contract, we have a very big red letter spot that says we discuss a lot of things during the course of a design. If you do not see it in writing somewhere on the plans or in the specifications, please question us. It may be included, but it may not be included. So we believe very strongly that that communication is both in writing and verbal, because I don't know about you guys, but my memory is not as good as it was 20 years ago. So, John, you had mentioned something about working with an outside interior designer.
Yeah, I mean, take a step back from all of this, right? We're sitting here trying to be like, hey, how do we help homeowners when talking about remodels? And all of us have this behind the scenes experience on like, here's all the wrong ways to do it. And I think if we take that step back and we, the funny saying is, unfortunately, in construction, anything is possible, right? So when a client says, can I do that? Our answers are always yes. But kind of the underlying text is, well, kind of at what cost or at what effort? And those are the things we find, I think, on this design build call, wanting to help people figure out, right? Because they'll go talk to a contractor and a contractor will say, well, tell me exactly what you want and I'll tell you exactly how much it costs. And the homeowner's like, well, I don't know those details. And they're like, great, go talk to an architect, go talk to an interior designer. And that can be a really wonderful process, right? You could get the dream space you're looking for. But if it was designed and 3 times your budget, you're kind of back into a problem. So that's where this design build model really comes to life, right? When you have those talents in house, Robert talked about that team being together for the client to design something and build something that's going to meet kind of the aesthetic, the budget, and all the expectations versus different parties pointing fingers. And Steve talked about that as well. So with the interior design piece, we tried using interior designers externally a while back, and it's not good or bad. What we found in that experience was they were marvelous at picking out stylish items that really resonated with the client from a look perspective. But where we found a really big gap was in the technical understanding of how to put that stuff
Right.
in a way that meets the client's expectations. Oh, and also checking availability and dealing with it when there's a problem, or whoops, it's the wrong color lot so there's picking what looks good is a lot of fun and it's great, but there's a really big technical lift on the backside that's needed to make sure it goes in a beautiful way and also in a way that fits the budget. So that's why we took interior design in-house, because I think a really, really great interior designer also owns the technical side of what it takes to put that in. Where are those grout lines going to break? What am I going to do with this design issue that's going to pop up in remodel? We'll all lean in and say, remodels, they typically have some issues here or there. And we want that design expertise at the table because they're the folks we trusted on the front end. I'm talking as a homeowner. You trust your designer implicitly. So when you run into something, they're going to be able to guide you to a better path if something pops up. When an interior designer doesn't get to those technical details of here's where these outlets need to go to make this appliance work, or how this tile needs to lay out, or here's this floor transition issue, or how are we going to deal with these things? When those are left open, I think that's where the experiences get really rough and construction gets a bad name because other people are pointing fingers across the board. Whereas in design build, it's all in-house. So all 3 of our companies, I think, do this amazing job of managing the expectations and being accountable to ourselves so we can give that client the best experience and not
Well
blaming.
said.
a designer, not blaming an architect, not blaming a construction person. So there's the benefit right there in design build. And I, before before we started this, we were all talking behind the scenes, and I think we do a wonderful job of managing cost too, because sometimes an outside architect or an interior designer can come with a pretty hefty price tag. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I just know internally we are all able to sometimes create those same services at kind of an economies of scale budget. That's to the benefit of us and to the homeowner. So there's the pros and cons, I think, of
Yeah, and especially now with the price increases that we've seen with building materials, if you're not on the front lines, you're kind of behind the game. So you don't know what those prices are going to be until you actually buy stuff. And even we get surprised. I'm sure all three of us have been surprised when we get a framing package in, or it's been challenging. So the other thing I wanted to mention, John, on what you were saying is not only the technical expertise of the designer or the architect, but the number of resources that we have partnered with our vendors who have that extreme technical knowledge and can answer those questions fairly quickly, whether it be a plumbing fixture or, how does this particular tile lay or cut, or what's the specs on, putting an LVT floor. Materials are changing pretty constantly, and they all have different requirements to stay within their warranty aspect. So we're constantly educating ourselves, and our vendors are a big part of that education.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that came to mind is value engineering. And that's just, that is truly looking at the cost, the design, and making that, fit to the client's budget and desire. And some people are willing to pay, they don't care what it costs maybe for one item, but they need to save money on other items to get that one. And so we, in our design build process, can help value engineer and make sure the client truly is getting the value of what they want, and the value is going to the things that are important to each client, and it's different. Some clients may want very nice tile. Some clients say, I don't care as long as it cleans easy. Other clients want plumbing. Other clients want really cool architecture exterior elements. And that is our job, is to help value engineer that and understand what the client wants. And like you guys have said, we have the collective resources in our own house design and with outside trade partners, and we've worked with architects and interior designers successfully and using everybody, but we're the point person to make sure that is all happening.
True.
Yeah, Robert, I know you do. You guys are also doing the custom home side of it. When you do work with like that outside architect, or outside interior designer, how are they woven in to your process?
So typically they'll come in and we'll bring them part of the team. A lot of times the financial arrangement is with the client directly, but we're just on the team as we go through that design and iterative process, really no different than if they were using one of our internal people. Okay. And we have interior designers that we have great relationships with us that just call us up now and say, we want Mountainwood to do the project. They already know our pricing. They know everything. They've set the expectations already with the client, and we just get brought in. But that's a function of us doing that on a repeated basis with them, and they're part of our team. We've learned together, and that's kind of the whole process. And versus our own teammates, we get to learn together all the time. We've had the opportunity to train some who don't reside in our office, if you will.
Right. I think the key there, from each one of us talking, is communication and having the team versus having individuals, and bringing the team together early in the process so you get the benefit of the team. If you if you do an architect and then an interior designer and then a contractor, there's a team, but they have not worked as a team throughout the whole project. And that's, to me, where issues come up and problems lie. So I think, you know, one takeaway would be just to, if you are going to use an architect or an interior designer, just talk with them about, you know, the team and how do we best put that together. And then you interview your team and put together, you know, the people that make sense for, as a homeowner, makes sense for you and your communication style.
Let's expand on that a little bit for the homeowner, right? Because for us, as soon as you said bring in an architect, interior designer, a contractor, Robert and I were just like, no, right? Because there's like all this experience coming into play, and I think maybe sharing some of that with folks
Sure.
watching this may help. And so I'll kind of tee it off, and then we'll roll to you guys. But one of the things I've noticed when there's three separate parties who haven't worked together, the homeowner says, well, hold on, don't you have everything you need? Here are the plans from the architect. Here's the plans from the interior designer. Builder, why don't you just go build that? And although it sounds simple from the outside looking in, it's actually not that simple. What I have found lots of times is the architect's plans will sometimes have a word called verify on site on it, which is it's a real bugger, right? What it's saying is the architect saying, hey, I'm not there in person with a measuring tape, so I'm going to kind of give you the general idea here. But there takes some tinkering to figure out those details. And that's where I found sometimes the homeowner's like, well, isn't that on the plans? And you're like, no, plans are best intentions. They're a really good idea and concept. And we try to be as exact as possible. But when we start thinking, a quarter of an inch can throw us off, right? Think about a flooring install or a tile install or a plumbing install. If you're off a quarter of an inch, that's noticeable. So there's this field verify thing that's just needed. And so sometimes the architect's plans, they're really good, but they're not the complete details that we need sometimes out in the field. So I'd love to turn over to you guys for your stories of why it's not. The homeowner saying, this seems so simple. And it's like, no, it's not. Here, let's share some stories. So
great. I think Steve brought it up and hit it on the head when he said his contract gets to a point where it says, hey, we did our best effort to get everything in, but we may not have got it all in. And that speaks to this team collaboration. And if we aren't involved early on, all that conversation happens outside of the builder prior to that back and forth. Should we do this? Should we do that? And then, as you mentioned, John, we're just given a piece of paper to produce. And we don't have the benefit of any of that back and forth and conversation. And we're all good at taking a piece of paper and turning it into something that's first 3D in our minds and then something hard out on the site. But we've missed out on all that collaborative conversation and everything that can happen in the background. And so getting that up forward and getting your builder as part of that is where it really makes a benefit to the homeowner.
Would agree. Yeah, and I mean, I get folks all the time, not all the time, but often that will give me a kind of a set of plans. It's not fully complete and just expect me to price it. I'm like, you know, one, it takes too long and I got to charge you for it because it's work in my mind. And second, there's not enough information for me to give you a really solid price because it's not complete yet. It's a recipe, but it's not a complete recipe.
Yeah, maybe we can wrap up with expounding on that a little bit of, let's say a homeowner is watching this or it's like, okay, that makes sense. Design build really makes sense to me. Okay, I understand we got to do some preliminary stuff or some design stuff to get to a construction contract. Maybe we can share with the homeowners, here's what you really should expect from a pre-construction / design agreement package. And it's not just picking out, oh, here's some great paint colors and tile swatch. I mean, it's much more detailed. So we'll go maybe Robert and Steve, and then I'll close it out with what should somebody be expecting when they work with a design build company to do that design agreement / pre-construction package. Robert?
Yeah, that's a great way, because one of the things that some people are surprised at is, we do a pre-construction agreement. We call it a design agreement in our world, but that is, we're going to go to work for our clients and do a preliminary design. We're going to extract out of them what they think they want. We're going to put a preliminary design together so that we can start putting together a construction contract. And because we're going to start doing work, we do need to be paid for that. And in our world, it's not, it's not a big number against the contract price, but it is a commitment to us that you're going to pay for our services and you value what you're getting out of us. And so that in our world, that preliminary design, and in our world, we write out the specifications so the client knows what they're getting, allows us to take it to the next level and get into contract. And
yeah,
Steve,
we do a similar process. We call ours a project development agreement, same thing, design agreement. But ultimately we start with a range, a wider range that, this is the project that you're describing to me looks like it's between here and here. And it really depends on the engineering and the thesis that you select and a lot of variables. And then once we enter into that PDA, we start fine tuning that range of price by making scope decisions, scope meaning what are we doing? Component decisions, what are we putting in? And at the end of the day, after you're consolidating everything, we have a tight scope, a list of components that we're going to be putting together, and a price that we will charge you to do this particular project set of plans. And I think that it's logical to know that in the beginning, it's just a dream. As you fine tune that dream, it becomes a doable, executable plan. And then you can determine what that executable plan is going to cost. And it's just a series of steps. And I think that that's truly, in my opinion, the only way to do a complex job, whether it be a remodel or a new build or anything else, because it's challenging to put all that in. And it's getting more and more challenging every year. It's getting more technical. When I started 35 years ago, there wasn't as many building products. There wasn't as many ways to do things. And code was a little looser. And it's just become more and more challenging as the years have gone through. So
great explanation, Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things we haven't spoken about that's baked into all of our design agreements, pre-construction or project developments is one of the biggest fears from homeowners, right? Is it's a remodel. I've heard you can open up the walls and find all this scary stuff. And it's a legitimate fear, but really what happens when you work with a good design build company, part of these design agreements, all of us are doing a feasibility study. We're kind of digging in there to figure out what trouble could we run into, because we're on the hook for this thing and we want to be a great service provider. So in that design agreement, I think for remodels, everybody's doing that feasibility piece too. Let me scratch around and just see, are you doing with galvanized lines? Do we have some transition issues here? So that you're not getting that big surprise. When you do the due diligence on the front end with your design team and your construction team, it really does really cut down on that risk factor and not just being thrown with a huge change order of, sorry, we found this in your walls. So that's a part of what I think we all do that, right? In our design process.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, great. Any other kind of big takeaways we can think about for folks on doing remodels or from a homeowner perspective about the design build process?
Well, I think that, again, I strive on communication. So it's all about making sure that you don't expect us to read minds, because it's important that everybody puts their information out and get it documented. I think that's a real important, no matter what system you go through, but just so everybody's got reading off the same sheet of music, so to speak.
Robert, how about for you?
No, I think we've done a good job of covering things, and I appreciate your guys' input. And I know all of us, I'll speak for all three of us, we'd love to have the opportunity to speak to anybody who's interested in doing a remodel and wants to know what the first steps are. Feel free to reach out to anyone.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Thanks so much, HPA. And thanks everybody for listening.
Have a good one.
All right.